The biggest lies in the mainstream media narrative, which they use to push their agenda, which is to keep and further division in America. I've done videos on most of these topics where I go more in depth on each. I'm just going to quickly list and summarize the top 4 lies the mainstream media have been telling to date. The mainstream media is saying over and over again that Donald Trump killed the DREAM Act. This is a complete lie. In fact, it's the opposite of the truth. Donald Trump saved the DREAM Act from the courts and the Washington swamp. Here is the truth. The DREAM Act was heading for judicial disaster. This after sitting in the Washington swamp for years. Everyone has to realize the DREAM Act was an unconstitutional act. As president, you may not make laws by presidential decree, and this is what Obama did when he created the DREAM Act. Therefore, the DREAM Act would have been shot down in the courts, and the dreamers would have been instantly at risk of deportation. Donald Trump saved the DREAM Act from this predicament, and he made the Washington swamp act on this, and to do it within 6 months, which in Washington, D.C. swamp standards is a miracle. Lie number 2. Donald Trump is a fascist. Just yesterday, Cory Booker, that race-baiting loser, was on television calling Donald Trump a tyrant. Let's take a look at the example I just went over. The DREAM Act. Donald Trump took the DREAM Act out of the Washington swamp where it had sat for years, only being used as a political tool, and he made Congress act within 6 months. This is the opposite of a fascist and a tyrant. In fact, there is not one actual event that anyone can point to and say that was fascist or that was tyrannical during the Trump presidency. But the mainstream media keeps saying this over and over and over again. So much so that their followers of useful idiots use this as one of their rallying cries. Remember, one of the communist credos is that if you say a lie enough, people will believe it. Lie number 3. Donald Trump is not responsible for the economy over the last 12 months. In fact, Barack Obama should be given credit. Here is the only credit Barack Obama deserves for the Trump explosive economy. Barack Obama instituted so many regulations and obstacles against company growth that he was holding everything back. And when Donald Trump took office and in his first year removed more regulations than any president in our history, the market exploded. So if you want to give President Obama any credit whatsoever for Donald Trump's explosive economy, that is the only thing you can point to. But the president removing these regulations and tax cuts is the true reason the economy is moving in the direction that it is. Record highs and record rates. Please keep in mind as well, if Hillary Clinton and the left had won the election, she would not have removed any of these regulations, and the economy would be at best putting along between 1 and 1.5% like it was during the first quarter of last year, before Donald Trump had the chance to remove the regulations. Last year, the first quarter, our economy grew by 1.2%. Donald Trump's economy is growing close to 3%, and hopefully will even surpass that, something President Obama last year said can only be done with a magic wand. Lie number 4. And I saved the biggest lie. In fact, the opposite of the truth used by the mainstream media against Donald Trump. And that is that Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump lived his life over the past 40 years, never once being charged or even accused of racism. In fact, the opposite is true. He was awarded by Jesse Jackson for his actions in helping racial equality. As well, we all have had the opportunity to watch The Apprentice. It was the #1 reality show on television for almost a decade. Here, the whole country had the opportunity to watch Donald Trump's actions right in front of our eyes. Did Donald Trump in any way, at any time, act like a racist? In fact, I challenge anyone to go over every and all of the episodes in The Apprentice and point out one action, any action by Donald Trump that even remotely was racist. You will not find one. The biggest story the mainstream media has had over the last year has been Charlottesville. Let's take a look at this. They have used this event for their own agenda to label the sitting president of the United States of America as a racist time and time again. With this, they have done the country what I think is the biggest disservice of all. They could have told the real truth of the story and made the white supremacists look like the pathetic fools they are. Think about this. White supremacists were calling out nationwide for months to have their largest protest ever in Charlottesville, North Carolina. 500 people showed up. Think about that. Nationwide support for these white supremacists was 500 people. Honestly, if you join the right chat rooms on the internet, you could find 500 people to support anything. And I mean anything at all. Literally, if we called out for people that like to have sex with fish, we could find 500 people in a country of 320 million people. But instead of pointing this out to show America how white supremacy is dead, for their own narrative and agenda purposes, which again is to divide the country, they made it look like white supremacy is everywhere. And everyone that did not agree with them was also a white supremacist and a Nazi. Well, I haven't seen any Nazis walking down my street, anywhere in my city, nor in my state. Nope, not one Nazi. But according to the mainstream media, you would have to believe that Nazis are everywhere. They control the country. But in reality, I see zero. Not one Nazi. Have not seen one. To summarize this all, Donald Trump is neither a fascist nor a racist. He saved the DREAM Act, and the roaring economy is completely to his credit. These simple facts are what makes watching the mainstream media frustrating to a red-pilled individual. These are blatant and obvious lies that are being perpetuated on what must be described as dumb people. The shame of it is, half of these people aren't really dumb. People with IQs of 70 and 80 have an excuse. It's not their fault. They're being manipulated. They're really dumb. They can't help it. It's the lawyers and the professionals out there that fall for these patently absurd falsehoods that boggle my mind. Wake up and think objectively for one day. It'll change your life and the future of the country as well. Thank you very much for your time. I hope you found this video informative, and remember, we are not the black, the red, the yellow, the white, the brown America. We are the United States of America, and together we are strong. Together we are free, and together we control the world's destiny.